So this is the inspiration for my paper mache project. It's a man hunched over with his head in his hands. To start doing paper mache, I started with a few simple things. The first thing I used was a cereal box. I cut it into different strips, which are then going to make the armature, or kind of like the skeleton of the figure that I was creating. So I cut about 2-inch strips out of the cereal box, and then I started taping them together, so I was going to end up with 2 round pieces and then straight pieces that would connect them up through the center around the sides. The one thing you are going to need a lot of is tape. I use Scotch masking tape. It seems to stick the best, and I honestly went through almost a whole roll. So what I did was I created 2 round circles, and one was slightly smaller than the other one, and then I put in 4 straight pieces that are gonna, like I said, make that armature for the body. So this is going to end up being a man sitting hunched over. So this is kind of the section of his body that would be his hips, his shoulders, going up towards his neck. I didn't want those pieces to come up too high because this was supposed to be about the length of his neck and shoulders. So what I did was I curled the pieces around kind of for the front of the chest and the sides of the shoulders, and then I left the one sticking up straight in the back because that is going to be where I'm going to attach the head, which is what I'm doing now by shaping the newspaper into a ball. So basically I'm just taking newspapers and rolling it up as tightly as I can. And once I get it to be about the right size, then I'll tape it. But I kept putting it up against the body to see if I had it the right size before I attached it and before I used more tape to secure it. Once you start putting the tape on, you can really start to shape the head. So I was trying to create a head shape, and then eventually using tape to kind of create the underneath the jawline. And the tape will really help you to get a good shape. Now how I'm going to connect the head is I had some picture wire. You wouldn't have to use wire, it helps a little bit, but if you don't have any, it's not super necessary. So what I did was I cut a small piece of it, and then I push it up into the bottom of the head, which works really well since it's made out of newspaper. And then I taped it across the back to make sure it was secure. And then that cardboard piece that I had standing up in the back is where I taped that wire to. That is going to be the neck. So now it is looking forward, which is what I wanted it to do, but I do need to support it so it just doesn't fall forward. So the other material that I used some of for the neck only was I used paper towel to create the shape of the neck, which you could use newspaper too. I just chose to use paper towel on this portion. So I really wanted to give the head some support, just like our real neck supports our head. So I started taping it around the back, and then I was gonna kind of beef it up in the front so it was a little wider to support that head, but I still wanted the head to be leaning forward. So that's kind of what I was doing with the paper towel. So like I said earlier, I really wanted to kind of shape out that head. So I took some extra newspaper and I created kind of a chin and a jawline. And then I started to cover that armature with paper. So at this point, I'm just trying to cover those holes, fill in those gaps, and I'm just basically almost like putting a cape on him with newspaper. And then I'm going to go back and eventually fill the inside so it's a little bit more solid. But the key here is when you're placing this on there, eventually what you want is kind of a smooth surface. So when you start to actually put the paper mache on, you'll end up with a smoother body or whatever it is you're creating. So my goal here is with the newspaper and tape then to have a smooth surface to apply the paper mache to eventually. Next here, what I'm doing is I'm creating the arm. I used a different type of paper that I had. It's just newsprint, so whatever paper you have will work fine. But this worked really nice to roll up. So I'm trying to create kind of the muscle structure where the top of the arm is going to be a little thicker for the bicep, and then the bottom of the arm is going to be a little thinner. So that's why I had that upper part of the arm a little bit thicker. Now I'm creating the hands. I'm trying to create the hand shape. The man in the picture has his hands holding his head, so his palms are kind of flattened. But I was creating both of them at the same time because I wanted to make sure the hands are the same size. I also made sure that when I was going to attach them that they were correct where the hands would be hitting the face, that the pointer finger and the middle finger was going to be pointed the right direction. So I kind of put my own hands up to my face to see which side my thumb would be on, which side my pinky would be on, so that it would all look correct. I also did some measuring as far as how long the arms are going to be, and I ended up shortening the arms probably about 3 times. I took measurements of my own arms and tried to make them work with the with this doll here so that it would look realistic. So now I'm working on the legs, and I started just building up the upper part of the leg by rolling newspaper. Again, trying to make this a little bit thicker. Obviously, thighs are going to be thicker than the bottom of the legs. So I was trying to make sure that I got those to be the right size before I started putting all the tape on there. So here is what the man looks like once he's all put together with newspaper. I wanted him to be kind of hunched forward, putting his elbows on his knees. His head is kind of in his hands. I wanted to make sure all the spaces were covered and all of the parts of his body were kind of the right shape. So this is what he looks like before he gets paper mache'd.